I got to talk about this article from the Boston Globe, and you see the headline right over my shoulder. Memo to black men, stop voting Republican. Now, this is actually put out by a major paper. They might want to call it an opinion piece or whatever, but it's on their actual thing. If they didn't want to be associated with it, then they wouldn't put it on there. I doubt they would put an article from some neo-Nazi whatever on their website. So I don't want to hear this whole thing about, oh, it's an opinion piece, whatever. Let's just be real. And you see the picture right over here. These are some of the young people that were at YBLS. This is probably in the White House itself. So I have a personal interest here because she's talking about me and some of my friends that I've made there and a lot of my extended family that I claim because we're all in the same boat together dealing with these crazy individuals. Now, the person who wrote this is named Renee Graham. And if I can link to her Twitter and stuff like that, I'll do that in the box. Just in case you guys want to send her a nice, friendly message about how you feel relating to this article. That's her right here in this picture. And the subhead here, if you can't see it, it says, attendees listen to President Trump's address during the 2018 Young Black Leadership Summit at the White House on October the 26th, 2018. She starts off the article saying, brothers, we need to talk. Okay, so she want to just start it off real nice and, grandma, auntie, whatever, mama like. We need to talk. In the midterm elections, about 17% of black men voted to give Texas Republican Ted Cruz another term in the Senate. Around 11% supported Georgia gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp, even though he did his best as a Republican Secretary of State to disenfranchise more than 1 million voters, the majority of them African American. Now, I've already read this article. You're going to see a common theme throughout, and it's starting right here in the very beginning. She'll put out certain claims and not really be able to back it up. What I want to know, which I don't think she answered here, if I remember correctly, is how did Brian Kemp disenfranchise more than 1 million voters and the majority of them are African American? What things did he do that targeted us specifically? What things did he do to target those individuals? I mean, I want to know that because you could put stuff out there and say it, but be able to back up what you say. Let's keep going. So here's my request, black men, vote like black women. So I guess her solution to all the problems we face in society as black people is just to be more like the women who vote like 95 to 96, 98% for the Democratic Party. What has that done for us in the past 40 years? I mean, we have seen our community just totally decrease. Marriage breakdown, increase in poverty, drugs, crime, all that. Incarceration, everything has just gone through the roof. Now, people want to blame white supremacy and racism, but is there more racism today than there was in 1960? Or is there less racism today than there was in 1960? If there's less racism today than it was in years past, why are things getting worse when you look at all these metrics that we can measure? But let's keep going in the article. Yes, black men vote consistently for Democratic candidates, but there is no more unshakable block than black women. More than 90% voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and against failed Alabama Senate candidate and accused sexual predator Roy Moore last year. Accusations, but that's fine. In Tuesday's midterms, 94% of black women voters supported Beto O'Rourke, Cruz's opponent. In Georgia, 97% of African-American women backed Democrat Stacey Abrams. Her opponent, Kemp, only resigned as Secretary of State Thursday after turning his contest against Abrams into a hot mess of voter suppression. She has refused to concede. Again, tell me in this article, I know there's links right here. You want me to go, see that. But you tell me in this article that I'm reading why you think that Brian Kemp was engaged in voter suppression. Explain that to me, because you should be able to outline all these things. I can read all of what you're saying right here in other sources, but if you're going to try to prove your case, prove your case. Don't just say things. But we continue. Only in Florida's gubernatorial race did black men surpass black women in voting for the Democratic candidate, Andrew Gillum, the African-American mayor of Tallahassee. Now, you say that Roy Moore was an accused sexual predator. Why don't you say that Andrew Gillum was accused of corruption? Why don't you say that in your article, op-ed, whatever this is? I'm not really sure what to call this. Black women generally don't vote against their self-interest. We vote as if our lives depend on it because they do. Now, what are black women's self-interest? I mean, you got black women, the poorest of the poor, a net value of $5. I'm not even really trying to make jokes. I'm being serious. You got 75% thereabout of black women that give birth to babies outside of wedlock, which is the highest in the nation beyond any other group, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native. It's the highest out of any group. But yet we vote Democrat. So I'm not really sure how voting Democrat is in black women's or in anyone's, regardless of race, best self-interest. But let's keep going. Much has been made, and rightfully so, about white women supporting terrible white Republican men at the ballot box. 2 years ago, 53% of white women shunned Hillary Clinton for Donald Trump, unswayed by the infamous Access Hollywood audio tape or his other boorish or racist behavior. Now, we're going to see if she's able to prove her claim here about boorish and racist behavior. But last time I checked, Hillary Clinton was the one that called young black men super predators back in the 90s. Okay, we have that on television. She said that on microphone, knowing that she was being recorded. So it wasn't even a thing of some locker room talk behind closed doors between two guys that he didn't think was on television. She said it on TV, defending her husband, who came up with the Clinton crime bill, which locked a lot of black men up. He actually came out and apologized for the Clinton crime bill. So we're going to ignore the crime bill. We're going to ignore Super Predators comments. We're going to ignore the fact that Hillary Clinton was not well during the actual 2016 campaign election cycle, coughing every 5 minutes, continuous out of control coughs, collapsing. She was a mess. So why don't you mention Hillary Clinton's obvious flaws and focus on flaws you think that Donald Trump has, while at the same time not being able to even prove your claims about Trump? But let's keep going. For the recent midterms, the numbers were again telling. Yes, Republicans lost support among suburban white women, which allowed Democrats to regain control of the House of Representatives. Yet in key races in Georgia, Texas, and Florida, white women still overwhelmingly voted red. Now, you're talking about white women a lot here, but this article, the headline was, Black Men Stop Voting Republicans. So why are you talking about white women right now? I don't understand, but let's keep going. As exit polls reveal demographic breakdowns and voting patterns, they again garner a lot of social media chatter about white women as foot soldiers for the patriarchy. But the statistics that caught my eye concern black men and their double-digit support for Kemp and Cruz. Even in the Florida race between Gillum and Republican Ron DeSantis, 8% of black men voted for DeSantis. That's a low number, but still too high when one considers that DeSantis was endorsed by white supremacists and buoyed by racist robocalls. First of all, anybody can support whoever they want. Just because a bad person supports you does not mean that you're a bad person. You may have 5 million or so votes in a particular state if you're running for the governor or less. I don't know. It depends on your population. Let's just say, for argument's sake, you have 5 million votes that are counted for you specifically as Ron DeSantis. If you have 5 guys that call themselves white supremacists who may or may not actually be that, let's just say that they are. You have 5 bad guys that support you. Okay, you got guys that have been to jail that support Hillary Clinton, guys that belonged in jail. I ain't talking about guys that was in there for, drugs. I'm talking about people that in there, sexual assault, home invasion and stuff like that, really violent crimes. They come home and somehow are able to get the record expunged, or they get their voting rights restored, and then they go out and vote for Hillary Clinton. Should I say that Hillary Clinton is a bad person because this convicted rapist voted for her? Just because you have bad people or people that have done bad things in their life voting for a person does not mean that the person that they're voting for is bad. It's just kind of a retarded argument. This is what we're talking about here in the black community, which was the whole purpose of having the YBLS. That's the Young Black Leadership Summit, which is the whole reason why this article is being written. She's upset about 8% of black men voting for DeSantis. So if 8% of black men that voted for DeSantis, that means that right around 92% of black men voted for Andrew Gillum. 92%. So you're mad that you're not getting 95%? Shout out to my friend Kenneth Owens for this particular stat. If Democrats get less than 85% of the black vote, they're finished. Nationally for sure, locally probably as well. This is why you have articles like this coming out. And this is why you got the gatekeepers like Roland Martin, Don Lemon, Michael Eric Dyson, et cetera, so on and so forth, that are coming out to try and defend the Democrats. When Hillary Clinton got on television and was joking about Eric Holder and Cory Booker looking the same, you had Roland Martin immediately come to her defense. I was reading the comments on this video and it was crazy. You had everybody in there talking about how could you defend her? You'll do anything to support your Democratic masters. This is what this is. But let's keep going in the article. I don't want to get too far off track. The article reads, how can so many black men still align with a party that now more than ever is unified by white identity politics? During his campaign, O'Rourke spoke passionately in a black church about a young unarmed black man killed in his own apartment by a police officer in Texas. Cruz turned the O'Rourke speech into an attack ad. One day before the election, Kemp tried to tie Abrams to the Black Panther Party by tweeting a photo plucked from Breitbart News of armed members holding an Abrams sign. Kemp claimed this as proof that his opponent was too extreme for Georgia. Well, look, I did a video about that as well, and I was, just talking about how these guys that have their weapons probably are not really going to be appreciative of Stacey Abrams becoming the governor because she's talking about gun confiscation. So if that happens and these guys have guns, I mean, at a certain point, you're going to see what's happening here. It's an obvious conclusion. You're not going to like who you supported. But she is extreme regardless of that picture. She is extreme. That's not really something that can be debated. My brothers, don't believe the hype. This Republican Party is not the party of Lincoln. This is unabashedly the party of white supremacy, migrant family separations, racist fear-mongering, and Brett Kavanaugh. You just threw all the talking points in the news in one little sentence. Like, this is actually kind of a poorly written article. White supremacy, what is that? That's like a specter. It's a ghost. Nobody can really explain what it is. If you ask 100 black folks what it is, you probably get 100 different answers. It's not clearly defined. It's just an excuse, a cop-out for people not doing what they're supposed to be doing in their lives. Migrant family separations, why does that concern me? Why am I concerned about migrant families? I mean, I'm not a migrant. If you're coming over here illegally, that's your problem. You got to be able to deal with that. And just because you come as a quote unquote family doesn't mean you're actually a family. You might not be. You might be a coyote engaging in human trafficking. That's why you got to be separated, just to make sure that you are who you say you are. Okay. And hopefully they get sent back to the country of origin and not allowed into the country. If you want to seek asylum, do it the right way. Don't try to sneak through the border and stuff like that. Racist fear mongering, you got to be able to explain that. Brett Kavanaugh, what did Brett Kavanaugh do? Brett Kavanaugh was falsely accused of sexual assault. One of the women came out and admitted that she falsely accused him. Admitted, like on the record. It's not even something that you can debate. And Christine Blasey Ford dropped her case right after he got confirmed. So if the case was so true, if the case was so valid, why did she drop it right after the confirmation happened? Let's be real. Back to the article. Even one-time Trump hugger Kanye West has finally stopped parading around in his red MAGA hat, at least for now. I mean, come on. Recently, The Economist pondered what it would take to make a black voter likely a Republican. For me, this was the most compelling statistic. The younger a black person is, the more likely to skew to the right. Although older white voters tend to be Republican, it's the reverse in black communities. That's because older African Americans have vivid memories of Jim Crow and segregation. Well, older African Americans are kind of stuck in their ways. I think younger people, we understand what it's going to take to go towards the future. The ways of old aren't going to be what it is. Meanwhile, Trump is courting young black conservatives. In October, he welcomed hundreds to a leadership summit where they chanted, "Build that wall." And I think I was a guy that started that build the wall chant. So you're talking about me specifically. Yes, we need to build that wall. I mean, why not? But let's continue. Yes, those were black people joining a racist president to keep brown people out of America. Look, it ain't about the racist people that's coming over here. I don't care if you're black, white, Puerto Rican, candy stripe, come here legally. I don't care what color you are. And when you do come here, be a positive influence in society. Contribute to society. Don't just be a bump on the log. That's what I'm saying. I don't care what color you are. Don't try to say that I'm somehow racist for wanting my country to have laws that we all follow. If I break the law, I go to jail. If they break the law, those who come over the border illegally, they don't go to jail. They don't get detained. They don't get separated from their family. If a person in America commits a crime, they don't go to jail with their whole family. Their wife, kids, whatever, can stay at the house. They don't come with them. So why should it be any different from those coming across the border? Let's be real. Why does what's happening in a different country concern me so much to the point where I neglect myself in my own country? But let's keep going. This part is funny. Check this out. Look, I get that black people aren't a monolith and shouldn't be expected to hold the same beliefs and political leanings. If that's the case, then why did you start the article off by saying black men stop voting Republican? If we're not all a monolith, then you shouldn't even be here writing this at all. You should just say, okay, you can vote however you want, and that's fine. I disagree. It shouldn't be this whole big think piece, op-ed or whatever, trying to convince us that what we're doing is wrong. But let's keep going. But we're in an era when Republicans have swapped their dog whistles for bullhorns. With hate crimes rising, you'll still be targeted for the color of your skin, not the content of your politics. Now, if I'm targeted for the color of my skin, who is it going to be by on, who is it going to most likely come from? A white person or a black person? You tell me. Just by the numbers, not even by nothing else, how you feeling, just by the numbers. Black folks, we are 48% of all murder victims in the U.S., and 95% of the time we're killed by a black person, despite us only being about 13% of the population. So who should I be more concerned about, the white man or a black man? You tell me, but let's keep going. You are supporting a man who places party and really his own needs and wants over country. He probably calls himself a nationalist and has repeatedly declined to tone down rhetoric fueling racism and anti-Semitism. Now, what's wrong with being a nationalist? Tell me what's wrong with that. You can just put it out there as being bad, but why is it bad? This article, like I said, has nothing in it. It's just a bunch of nothing. You're not telling me why I should vote for the Democratic Party. I did not see one thing in here that would convince me to vote for the Democrats. I did not see one thing in here that would convince me that Democrats are on my side. You could say that the Republicans don't like you, they hate you, but do the Democrats love me? You've not been able to prove that point, but let's keep going here. Often people of color ask white allies to speak to their own friends, relatives, and coworkers about the damage Republican candidates and policies do to our communities. In that spirit, black men, I'm speaking to you. Our concerns are your concerns, or at least they should be. That was a really terrible article. Really terrible, poorly written, nothing of substance in there. Some of these comments, somebody says, cue the Renee's racist idiots. And the person below them says, cue the lefties who think that blacks can't think for themselves. Exactly, 100%. This person says, how about voting like an American? Listen to the views as you choose and see fit. Your story headline offends me. I'm right there with you. Renee's message to black men: do not think for yourselves. Do as you are told. Vote for whom you are told. Kind of like slavery, isn't it? So much for MLK's vision of a colorblind society. Very well said. I think I'm pretty much done. We know what the comments are going to have. We know pretty much how that's going to go. At the end of the day, as I close, I just want to say that this article was really weak. A bunch of shaming language, nothing of any substance. Give me something that I can sink my teeth into and something that's real. Don't give me all this stuff about, oh, they're racist, they're xenophobic, homophobic. You're not telling me anything. You're throwing out a bunch of words that have no meaning unless you back them up with actual facts. And tell me why I should vote Democrat. You're talking about how you got 90-something% voting for this candidate that's Democratic, that candidate that's Democratic, but you're not telling me why I should. Just because you have a high number of us that do does not mean that I should as well. Why can't I be my own individual and vote how I see fit? So that's pretty much all I got. What say you? Do you think that Renee is part of a bigger plan to keep the black voting percentage very high when it comes to Democratic candidates? Because like I said before, once you drop down to about 85% of the black community, then you're going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to win these national elections anymore. Maybe not even local elections. It's going to be an issue. Could that be why they're trying to bring in more illegal people? Why they're trying to push for amnesty of millions of people that are here illegally, no social security number, nothing like that? Could that also be the reason why they don't want to have voter ID so they can engage in fraud at the ballot? Whatever your comments are, please let me know in the comments below.